Hi everybody, I'm Origosis and welcome. We are going to be tearing down this computer to replace the motherboard. So that just means removing, well, for me, I'm just going to remove just the components and wires I need to get the motherboard out and get the new motherboard back in. So, let's see, let's start with the video card. We can see how much of this I can do with one-handed while holding the camera. First thing, take out the 6-pin power connector. So there we go, that's out. That's all the cables going into there. We're going to take out, we'll get all the cables unplugged. So we're going to take out the SATA for the 2 hard drives. SATA. This is the front audio or front USB. We're going to unplug that. There we go. That's a label, USB. So that's the front USB. I believe this puppy stretched all the way over here is the front audio. You can tell by the 2 different connectors it has, because depending what kind of sound card you have to use a different connector. What it is one of the connectors does AC97, while the other one, I believe this will say HD. Yes, the other one does HD audio. So most motherboards these days are all going to be HD audio, but a few really old ones might have the AC97, or maybe not they're not old, but for some other reason they just only came with that. Okay, next thing we'll do, I might as well get the RAM out. You'll notice I'm not grounded. I'm not, and that's because I'm not super worried about it. My computer, I will do with it as I please. However, I was working with brand new, super expensive components and all that jazz, I would be a bit more concerned, and I would certainly ground myself. But they're old components. If I kill them, I'm not going to be super concerned. Yes, it's a waste of money. I don't like to waste money, but I don't believe I'm going to run into any issues. And if I do, oh well. I will learn, and I will get myself a grounding strap. Oops, sorry about that. Dropped that screw. Alright, so what's nice about this is this one screw, you take off this plate, and you have access to remove all the PCI cards. Now the other thing, I don't know if I can get the camera in there. See that little white tab? Right there. Somewhere in there, there's a spot I need to push on to loosen this video card. And let me see here. Oh yeah, it's way under there. Let me see. Get this partially removed. Yeah, see how I have it? Let's see if we can get a view here. See how I have the video card coming up like that? That's because that little tab back there is, sorry. There's a little tab back there holding in the back end of the video card. And I need to push that tab to get this out. Anyways, let me, again, doing this one-handed. There we go. I was able to push back on that little white tab there. And boom! Video card is out. ATI Radeon 3850, by the way. Nice old card. Pardon the dust. Yeah, Zoom's not going to catch it. Anyways, that's the 3850. Just set that down right there. I try to keep everything organized to a point. Not going to go super crazy. It's all going back in a few moments. Okay, next, let's unplug this is the heat sink right here, and that cable, that white, red, and black cable is its power cord for the fan. And we're going to unplug that. This is fairly easy to remove. There's just this little latch here, and we are just going to flip this latch over like so. And we just slide that up like that. And this comes right off. There we are. There's a little bit of grease down there and dust. Not a very good situation, but it is what it is. Okay? There's the CPU with a bunch of dust around it. Pretty bad. Pretty bad. This will also, we have a little latch here. You push this way gently and pull up. And that releases the pressure on the CPU, so you can just pick it right up. And that's the key with CPUs. There should never be any pressure. And again, I'm going to horribly just set that right down there on that plastic. And there, I got grease all over me. There's cooling grease on the CPU. Anyways, next thing is we're probably going to get to the screws. You see, I have one more. What do I have? I have two more cables to unplug. This power cable to this fan. That's unplugged. Now the other one is a bit more difficult to get to. This 4-pin connector. There we go. So that 4-pin connector, pretty tough to get to. So I'm going to see if after I get the motherboard unscrewed, I can just slide it out from underneath the fan. If not, then I'll just have to unscrew the fan, which I can do by the screws right there. So I'm not going to go crazy if I can't get it out. Oh, and we also have an IDE cable. This is IDE. You don't see that a lot, but that's only because I threw an old spare CD-ROM drive in here. Anyways, there we go. We've got those disconnected. Front panel wires. These are going to be fun because they're all separate connectors. But usually the motherboards are labeled, so that won't be too bad. Okay, let's push that back down and let's start unscrewing the motherboard, which there's usually 4 or 5 screws. Usually one in each corner and then one in the center. Not all motherboards are like that, but many are. And depending what kind of builder you are, you might just put in 3, or you put in one in every hole if you feel like it. It all depends what you're building, what you're doing. If you know it's a system you're going to be taking apart a lot, you might just pop in 2 screws and just go with it. There we go. Now, the other, looks like this one may only have 3 screws, so there we go. Screw number 2. Number 1 was in there. Number 2 is down there. There's the one in the center of the case, center of the board rather. Now this particular screwdriver isn't magnetic, but to go along with my lack of grounding strip, I also have no issue working with magnetic tools. I just don't see that the components are that sensitive. And again, if I ever do ruin a component because of that, then, well, it's my fault and I'll just have to pay for a new one and stop working with magnetic tools and get myself a grounding strip. If I was working on someone else's computer, then yeah, I'd use safe tools and a grounding strap, which is what I did when I took them apart at work. There we go. All right, 4 screws. Let's see if this can move. Oh yeah. So good. I got all the screws out of there. I just need to scooch this out from under that fan. There we go. Get the dust off of there. And take that connector out. There we go. And that's the 4-pin connector. That provides some extra power to the CPU, I believe. All right. So now everything on this motherboard is unplugged. We can just lift it out. And there we go. Motherboard is out. By the way, this is a BioStar. I got this in a little bundle deal. I couldn't beat it. $60. You got the Mobo and the CPU. I figured, hey, even if it is junk and it dies in a year or two, I think it'll be worth it, in my opinion. I also have the opinion of buying good parts and having them last a long time too, for less hassle. But I enjoy doing this. Now, the new motherboard we have here, this is pretty nice. See this puppy right here? This is an AM3 Plus. That's a type of CPU socket. In other words, what it used to be is the way the pins are arranged. See those holes down there? Calling this an AM3 Plus or an AM2 Plus for Intel would usually represent the pin arrangement and different compatibilities that are on the board to work with the CPU. So you could say it's the CPU type. And this can take AM3 Plus type CPUs. But it can also take AM2 Plus type CPUs. And I believe, even though it doesn't say it there, I believe on the website it takes a few other types. What's nice about that is I can put my old CPU in here. At least I should be able to. According to the website, I can. And again, I apologize about the mess and the dust. We are going to see if this CPU will go in here. Now, as you can see, there's a little copper mark on the top of the CPU. That helps you figure out the orientation. And you can see right there's a little arrow in that corner on the plastic. And not really any other arrows in any parts of the plastic. So, let me just set that down for a moment. Open this up. And I do believe this should slide right in at this orientation. And it did. I didn't even have to push it down. It just dropped right in. Now we're going to close this here. Alright, so there we go. CPU is in. Did I have to do it before I put the Mobo in? No, but I did. So, next thing we're going to do is we are going to get this motherboard situated in here. As you can see, it is a smaller motherboard, and that doesn't really affect anything at all. It just means you're going to have some ports a few less ports you can use and everything. But we were never using those extra ports in the first place, so it doesn't affect us. Oh, the other thing we need to do, I'm sorry, I usually don't buy brand new motherboards, so I usually do not have a back plate. So we're just going to pop this back plate out. It just pushes back into the chassis. There we go. So you just push it on back. It's not really connected to anything. It's just it slid right in there. There we go. Slide that out. These tend to be specific to the motherboard. All the holes are lined up for where they'll be on the motherboard, which is pretty close. Sorry about the wire. It's pretty close to this motherboard, but as you can see, it is missing a few holes for everything to go in, so we would have to change it. And then for the most part, why not just put it in your new one you got? So here is the new back plate for the new motherboard. Pardon the camera while I get this opened up. Alright, and let's put the camera facing that way. And I'm just going to slide this in under here at an angle. And there's really no easy way to describe how to get this in except for lining it up and pushing everything into place. And it'll pop right in. Again, hard to show on camera. Alright, move that wire out of the way. And I just want to get this lined up with all the holes on the back plate. There we go. And as you can see, all the holes line up all nice right there. All right, so next, again, we'll set the camera down here. Try to get these cables out of the way. You know what, I'm gonna unplug these SATA cables because I might use the new ones. Either way, I'll unplug them for now just so they're out of the way. Okay. Still some cables there. All right. Now, the screws tend to come with the case, not with the motherboard. So I don't believe there's any motherboards that come with the screws you need. It's usually the case that provides them because the screws would need to be threaded for that specific case you have. And, you know, for whatever reason, it may not have screws for certain things. It might have a little clip you push down or something, which tends to be the case with other parts in the motherboard, the other parts of the case. The motherboards almost always get screwed down, but sometimes you can get brackets that go into your CD-ROM drives and your hard drives. And that way you can slide them in and out very easily. Some don't use any screws at all for most components, but they almost always use screws for the motherboard. I haven't seen any that don't. But again, usually the screws for the motherboard will come with your case because they need to be threaded for the holes in the case. And yes, this has only lines up with 4 points on the case. Just about the same spots, and I'll show you those once I get these all in. Whoops. Helps if I go in a bit straight. See, also helps if I had a little screwdriver. I'm going to be working around this fan here. There we go. All right, so all 4 screws went in. There are no other points I could screw down if I wanted to. So we have one back here. Oh, sorry about the autofocus there. Come on, autofocus. Come on, autofocus. You can do. Okay, screw autofocus. Let's zoom way out. We have a case. Hey, autofocus is working. There's the other screw hiding. Oops, wire got caught. So, 1 screw, 2 screws, 3 screws, and 4. All right, next, what do I want to put in? Next, before I get anything in here, probably a good time to plug in most of the case wires. So, 4-pin connector. There's no way to put this in wrong. If auto zoom, we'll get in on this. And auto zoom. Doesn't want to do it, but you can kind of see it in the blurry image there. Each one of those is a different shape. A square, a round bottom, a round top. And that helps to figure out which way it goes in. So unless you've got a lot of muscle or some really cheap parts, everything will only go in one way. Some of it does need a little bit of muscle to get in, so it's hard to tell if you have it lined up wrong or if you just need a little bit more effort to get it plugged in. But really, the best thing to do is just look at where all the clips line up, look at the shapes of the holes, and for the most part, you won't plug in anything wrong. For example, this has a little clip up here. Looking at this, you can see that there's a little lip right there. That's where the clip will go. So when we go to plug this in, it only goes in one way and clips right on over there. There we go. All right, next, oops, that's the GPU plug. We won't be plugging that in yet. The power cords to the hard drives, those come from the power supply, so those were never disconnected. The data cables, I think, will do. The parallel port next, and I want the parallel port to come under these cables. By the way, I'm not very worried about proper cabling in this case. We're just going to get everything plugged in nice and neat. And that slides right in there. And again, that has a little nub to make sure you only put it in one direction. All right, actually I'm going to open up those yellows because we're going to be using those in a moment. See, you want to have these opened that way. The blue ones we're not going to use, so I'll keep those closed for now. It doesn't really matter where they are, since we're not going to use them. Oh, and sometimes you can slide the cables underneath the motherboard. It's all rubberized, so you're not really going to hurt anything unless there's some pin or some component you end up pushing under there, which for the most case you're not going to do. Motherboard, underneath the motherboard, it's usually just a few sharp points, and it's mostly flat. Okay, next, I'm saving the hardest one for last, those power connectors. Next, we're going to plug in the external USB, which doesn't really matter which one it goes into. We'll just put it into the one marked USB 4 and 5. So we have one. Now again, the auto zoom isn't going to be too friendly here, but you can kind of see there's only 9 holes on there. One's blocked, and as you can see on the blue connector, there's only 9 pins. So the blocked one will go right over where that blocked pin is. Let me just shimmy that on down. You don't want to be put in too much muscle with these, because you might bend one of those pins. Now comes the fun part. Oh, I am so sorry about all the camera movement. I might have to come in from another direction. All right, well, you know what? Let me get in really close here so you can see. So, come on, auto zoom. Zoom, zoom, zoom. There we go. So, if I would stop wobbling, you can see the HD LED, power LED, goes there on the left. So we look at the wires here, and we see the power LED, which, oops, sorry about that. The power LED actually takes 4 on my connector here. I have 2 different power LEDs. Oops, again, sorry about all the wobbling. Let me get this cable here. Okay, so this particular case has 2 power LEDs, a 4-pin power LED, 3-pin rather, and the one we want, a 2-pin power LED. Now I usually go by white is plus and every other color is ground. So white will go into the power LED plus up there. So we're going to have the white, we're going to have it oriented this way, with the white on the left, because that's where the plus sign was, and the blue on the right for the ground. I could be completely wrong on that, however, but for the most part it's worked for me. White is plus, every other color is ground. Here is the power switch, power SW, and we'll look down here for the one labeled power switch, which the glare is hiding it, but it is the top right portion with the plus on the left. So again, with the white cord on the left there. Okay, next cable we have is the hard drive LED, which we already saw goes right below the power LED. Last cable here, reset switch, which appears to be all the way to the right with its plus in the center-ish. So there we go. That should be correct. Should be. Hopefully we don't pop anything. Hopefully it just doesn't work if I did it wrong. And you can always open up the manual and check. And you'd have to check the manual for your case also, which I don't have the manual for this case. So again, I'm just going to have to hope that I got it right. This case has no speaker built in. That's where you hear those little beeps. So it may not emit any beeps, so there might be a little speaker somewhere on this board, which I don't think there is, but there might be. Anyways, next, what type of audio do we have? We have HD audio. So we're going to plug in the HD audio plug, and again, one pin is covered, and you can see one pin is not there. At least I hope you can see. Here, I'll come in a little bit upside down, see different angles. All right, so you just got to orient it the right way. Plug it in, and again, you got to give it some pressure, but don't muscle it too much, or you might bend your pins. We won't be using this. This is for another type of audio card, which we don't have on this motherboard, which is fine. Okay, next. Oh, okay, so this is interesting. See the adapters right here? They are in a different orientation than the other case was. See? This will put it in sideways like this, which I'm okay with for now. It's not too hard to reorient this. All I'd have to do is just slide. Oh, could this slide out? Yes. I believe I could take this apart to reorient it. See those two holes right there? Sorry about the orientation again. See those two holes right there? That's so I can orient this separately. But I'm okay with this blowing down, and I'll see how my temperatures go, because this will blow right onto the GPU, which again isn't going to be the best airflow decision I could make. This is mostly a lazy decision on my part because I don't feel like reorienting the connectors. I would recommend reorienting the connectors, but I'm going to go for it and see how my case heat looks. Okay, so I just need to get that connector in there, get the GPU on there. I apologize, very difficult to catch on camera with one hand. So that, again, that same wire getting in the way. Try to get out of the way there. All right, so I just need to get this latch down around there. Oh, the other latch popped up. Basically, I just need to get the latch on the opposite side, and then once I do, keep pressure on it so it doesn't come out. Okay. Whoa! Ha! Good news! I accidentally took it apart. So I guess while I'm here, with this already apart, I might as well reorient it. And we're going to reorient it this way. Sorry. Yeah, we're going to just put this right through here. Does it fit through there? I might be mistaken. Yes, it does. Okay. So, got that through there. I just reattach that. And voila, we have reoriented the heatsink completely by accident. Wonderful. Wunderbar. All right. Get that centered there. Get this clip. Oh. Wow, look at that fan. That just fits there, huh? Right up against it. Not touching. It's got just enough space so it's not touching. And again, things I could reorganize, but I won't, because I am not overly concerned with it. It will be good enough, which for this situation is fine. If I had much more expensive components or much newer components, I would be concerned with it. always have the worst time with these connectors here. Alright, so that's good. Now I'm just going to push down there to keep pressure on it. While I slide this on and get it through that little blue piece. Now we're going to twist this around. This is the dangerous part. Now we're putting pressure on the CPU. Alright, there. Now we have locked the heatsink onto the CPU. Got a little bit of shimmy room to move. Okay, now CPU power cable is going to come around this way. At least I think it is. Oh God, what have I done? The plug for the CPU all the way under there. See it? See that white thing right in the center there? That's where I need to plug the CPU in. So what I'll actually do is I'll just finish plugging everything in, and I will get to that after I'm done recording. Alright, case fan plug is hopefully not also under there. Chassis fan 1 is here. And I don't believe this supports any other chassis fans. That's okay, I only have one. If you had more chassis fans, you can get converters so you can plug them into here. So you won't be out of luck as long as you have enough of these on your power supply. Molex connectors. One more time. Molex. Okay. So let's get those data cables plugged back in. So this will go up here, and I'm going to be reformatting these hard drives, so I'm really not worried about where they plug in. See if I can get those SATAs on a good spot. How about here? The SATAs don't want to be on camera. There's the SATA ports. Let's see, we have SATA 1, SATA 2, 3, and 4. Sometimes there's 0, 1, 2, so keep an eye out for that. If something's labeled 0 and 1, 0 will be the first one. With SATA, not overly important unless you want to keep things organized. And another reason why you want to keep it organized is if you know one hard drive plugs into 0 and one hard drive plugs into 1, and then you go to install Windows and asks you, which one do you want to connect to, 1 or 2? And you're like, oh, I can't remember where I plugged the hard drive in. Which means you'll have to open the case back up and see what SATA you plugged into what hard drive. So, all right. Next, RAM. So we will bring the camera back around. Is that the best spot to look at the RAM? I guess that'll have to do. So the RAM has a notch right there. That little hole. You want to line it up with the notch on here. So you just slide it on down, and it goes right in. And now when you push on it, that connector slid into place. Sometimes it doesn't, and you'll have to kind of push down and push the connectors under it. But for the most part, all you need to do is push down on the RAM, and those connectors will click right in. Like that. And I like to give them a little gentle wobble. Gentle. That could be very wrong, that could be okay. Someone could be looking at this going, oh my God! Look what he's done! Alright. Let's see here. Oh, look at that! Remember that PCI thing? Oh, wait, no, this is a different motherboard. Never mind. I'm like, that's how you move it. Wait, nope, different motherboard. Alright, so we're going to bring this wire up. I'm going to bring this. Aha. So my GPU kind of runs into my cables here. Let me reorient my camera again so you can see. Put it here. So, GPU just, I need to pick that wire up, bring it down here. And as you can see, it just clears those SATA cables. See how it's right up against them? You're going to see that a lot in cases. And if needed, I could always move this hard drive up or down these slots. But I'm okay with this. Okay, now we just push down. Get everything lined up. All nice. You want to make sure it's fairly flush with this. This is a very cheap case, so it doesn't exactly line up properly. But that's more the fault of the cheap case than of the motherboard in this situation. And just, play with it to figure out what's going on. If you dropped between 30 and, I don't know, I'd say anywhere under 40 bucks for a case, you'd probably be met with something pretty cheap. But you may not be. You could end up with something really high quality. It depends on if it was a deal or a good manufacturer. In this case, this was some $20 special I got with free shipping, so I'm not super worried about the quality of the case. It holds everything together. I'm happy. Okay, next we put this back on here. Now we can line this up. There we go. Alright, and now I need to use both hands to put this screw in. So I do apologize. You can have a look from this end. Let me get that screw in there. I don't want to go too tight. By the way, another thing to watch out for on the cheap cases, very easy to strip the metal. The screws tend to be stronger than the case, so you won't strip the threads on the screw, you'll strip the threads on the case for these inexpensive cases. They're made out of very inexpensive aluminum, but again, you get what you paid for. Alright, let me reroute these SATA cables just a little bit. Again, I'm not overly worried about the cabling in here. The airflow is going to be fine. It's a very large case. So the only thing I need to do now is to get that CPU thing plugged in. What I should do is take that heatsink back out. I don't want to take that heatsink back out. So I'm going to spend a minute or two trying to get that plugged in. Again, after I turn off the camera. Alright, let's double check everything here. CPU, check. Heatsink, check. RAM, check. Cables, SATA, fan, power cord, power LEDs, reset switch, front USB cable, audio cable, power to system. We never unplugged the power to the hard drives, so those are still plugged in. We never, well, apparently I did unplug the power to the CD-ROM. That was probably when I was testing things out. Not on this video, but we'll plug the CD-ROM in now. So there we go, that's plugged in. Alright. So, that's it. This is pretty much done. You would just plug in your video card, which if you have two video cards, so if you have an onboard one and an external, in my case, this won't work because I don't have an onboard video card. This is in case my CPU came with one, it doesn't. So in my case, I'm only going to plug into here and boot up, and the signal should come through fine. When you first boot up with a new motherboard, it usually will default to your external video card, but it might default to its internal. So don't screw down whatever cable you use. Just be prepared to switch over to one or the other to see where your signal's coming through, and also the top or the bottom if you have multiple video cables on your video card, ports on your video card rather. Okay, Another thing to keep in mind, USB keyboard and mice, you can plug them in after you boot it, if you feel like booting your system and then plugging it in later. PS2 ports tend to not be that way. You need to plug these in before you apply power to your system, unless these aren't real PS2 ports. Some of these are actually just connected to the USB bus, in which case you can plug them in whenever you want to, because all your system is doing is converting them to a USB keyboard and mouse anyways, so they'll tend to work after you boot it. Just something to keep in mind. Most people are going to have USB, but in case you have these, they tend to only work if plugged in before you power on the system. I haven't seen any systems that don't do that yet, except for the ones where these are actually USB. Alright, I can't think of anything else at the moment. If I missed anything, I apologize, but for the most part, you got the gist of installing the motherboard and get everything else plugged in there. Alright, so there it is, the finished system. Once again, we'll get a nice big top-down view of it. All done, all connected. Thank you for watching. Everyone have a good day.